Hey everybody, it's Kalisha here. I just felt the need to say a little bit about everything that's been going on in the media and with the nonsense insurrection that happened 2 days ago on the 6th at the Capitol. There's just been so much being posted and so much backlash, and I know anytime anything happens like this, and I think it's directly related to either social injustice or racial injustice or Black Lives Matter or anything like that, I constantly post because I feel like there are people that follow me who don't necessarily have all of the insight or the direct experience to fully understand. And so I feel like if I have a platform and I have a voice, that I need to utilize it. And so I have always been and will always continue to be an advocate and activist for social justice and racial justice, and so I'm going to continue to speak about it. I also noticed that every time I start posting, I lose a couple followers, which is fine. Bye. If you don't like my opinion or my lived experience and it bothers you that I advocate for social and racial justice, then you don't need to be following me. You don't need to be on my page anyway. And so a lot of people are trying to associate the rioters and the complete nonsense we saw this week with the Black Lives Matter protests, and they're two completely different things. They are fighting for or protesting for polar opposite. And there's a big difference between people saying we are tired of seeing our people being shot and murdered in the street by law enforcement, the people who are supposed to protect and have taken an oath to serve and protect them, and taking away their First Amendment right to freedom of speech and the right to protest. That's a stark difference from the people who ransacked the Capitol and committed multiple crimes and felonies, federal crimes. So there's just a huge difference. And what they're saying is their freedoms are being taken away. What freedoms? The freedom to not wear a mask? Any store you go into, there are signs posted like you can't walk in without a shirt. You can't walk in without shoes. Right now we're in the middle of a pandemic. Whether you want to accept it or realize it or not, it is here. People are dying from it. People are getting sick. And there's data that shows that a good majority of people that are getting sick are either from people who are congregating in mass numbers without masks and not taking precautions, and also people who are going into public places and not taking precaution and not sanitizing and washing their hands and things of that nature. So you're fighting and protesting to not wear a mask because you refuse to believe, because you're listening to the idiot who's in office right now about it being fake news, or that people are sensationalizing this pandemic and the virus. It is real, and it just turns into utter chaos. But for those of you who are sick and tired, because I've seen a lot of posts about that, you're sick and tired of hearing about Black Lives Matter, you're sick and tired of everything being about race, guess what? So are we. We are sick and tired. This is our lived experience day in and day out. And me being a fairer skinned, a lighter skinned person of color, I don't even receive it on nearly the end that people who are darker in skin tone receive it. And so I realize and I recognize that I have a privilege because I am lighter skinned, and so I speak up about it. My mom is not light skinned, she is darker skinned, and so I am consistently advocating and fighting for her. So let me tell you about some of the things that have happened to us and to my mom that I've had to fight about. I have gone to the store with my mom where guys, and it's usually men, will stop and ask me what I'm doing with her. And I'm like, I don't know why someone even thinks that would be okay to ask. As if there shouldn't be a reason that I should be with this Black woman. Now, if you put skin tone to the side, I look exactly like my mom. Like, everyone calls us twins. So the fact that they think that I couldn't be with her, and so I have to advocate for that. I've been to the store with my mom where cashiers didn't want to take the money out of her hand because I don't know if they thought they were gonna catch blackness. I don't know what they thought, but they didn't want to touch her hand. They wanted her to put the money on the counter, and so it's like, nope, you can't accept the money from her hand. It's just as green as everybody else's money. Then you don't want her money at all. I've been with my mom where an idiot, stupid, young, white kid was calling her Aunt Jemima, and I was ready to fight. And my mom had to stop me from fighting. It's just stupid things like that. Where we go to a restaurant, and if I ask for a table, we can get a prime table towards the front or towards the middle of the restaurant. If my mom asks for a table, we're getting the one in the back in the corner and that's in the dark. So for those of you who are sick and tired of everything being about race, we are sick and tired of that shit too. And if you don't have lived experiences day in and day out like that, then don't tell me that you're tired. I don't want to hear that you're tired. You are not more tired than we are. And you are sick of everything being made about race, but we are too. Everything is literally about races. Most of our day in and day out interactions have undertones of racism. And some of you don't want to recognize the racism or the bias that you buy into or that you are involved in. For me, I'll tell you some of the personal things I've been told. You're pretty for a black girl. So these are conditional compliments, and the undertone is racism, and it is a backhanded insult, really. To be told I'm pretty for a black girl. So let's break that down. First of all, that means in general you believe that black women are pretty. And I am pretty for a black girl. Why? Because I'm lighter skinned, because I'm mixed. Why is that? Now, I had another guy tell me, he was trying to talk to me, trying to get my number, trying to holler at me, and he said, "You're the first black girl I've ever thought was pretty." Now, he thought he was giving me the ultimate compliment. He thought he was giving me the, like the top line, pickup line. To me, that was an insult. Another conditional compliment, another backhanded insult. First of all, that tells me that you don't think black women are pretty in general. And I just don't believe for 1 second I'm the first one that you ever thought was pretty. So aside from like people you see day to day, but you've seen Beyonce, you've seen Rihanna, you've seen Tyra Banks, Naomi Campbell, you've seen all of these beautiful women, singers, actresses, celebrities who are gorgeous. And you're going to tell me that you've never thought a black girl was pretty before? And so let me take that even further. Now, I could never date you because I could never bring you home to my family because my mom is black. My cousins are black. My sisters are black. My aunts are black. And so I could never bring someone who doesn't believe they have any value or any beauty home and expect you to really relate or to understand or expect you not to say something that has racial undertones like that compliment that you thought you gave me. So it's just little stupid things like that. Or that you're so pretty for a black girl. It's just little things like that are microaggressions, right? That people like to bypass them and think like, oh, it's nothing, it's not that big deal. But there is a racial undertone to it. And people consistently expect people of color and black people to not respond to it, to let those little microaggressions pass. Well, more than likely, and I know this is true for me, but for probably most people of color, those days are over. You're going to get called out on it, especially if I hear about it, especially if it's said to me or in front of me. I'm going to call you out on it. Same thing I would if you said something sexist or if you said something, that was elitist or whatever. I would call that out as well. But there just seems to be a lot more of those racial undertones to so many things. And so we get those microaggressions, we get these statements, these insults, day in and day out, you get these little things like getting put in the corner of the restaurant, or someone not wanting to take your money directly from your hand, or someone comparing you to somebody, or saying something like, oh, you know what, you're really smart for a black girl, or you're so well spoken, based on, my race, or well spoken based on where I come from. And it's like, do you say that to white people? Do white people generally get told, you're so well spoken? Like, it's shocking that you have intellect. It's shocking that you're educated. Perfect example, none of our presidents have ever gotten that, but Obama got that repeatedly. Why? Oh my God, he's such an eloquent speaker. He's, like as if he was speaking circles around people, and that was just such a shock that he actually had intellect. People are ridiculous, and the one person that has shown he has absolutely no intellect and has no right to be in his position is Trump. And those of you that follow him, that voted for him, and now are trying to pass off like that you're really shocked at the behavior that's happened this week. I don't know why. We have all known, those of us who don't care for Trump and who didn't vote for him and that are people of color, have seen this from when he was running for office, before he even became president. It has been evident that this is who he was. And how you guys have gone through these last 4 years blindly acting like you haven't seen it is ridiculous. Don't stop and act shocked now when he has shown his ass and shown who he is. The entire 4 years prior to the 4 years being in office, he's shown who he was. He's told you what he was going to do. And he's done all of it, all of the nonsense, whether it was corrupt or not. And so many have blindly followed him and continue to blindly follow him. And so it's just nonsense. So many of the people that I was friends with on social media or friends with in person, and if you are an avid Trump supporter and continue to boast about his nonsense and follow his lies, I'm not following you anymore. That includes some of my family members, because I have a couple family members who engage in that nonsense too, who are Trump supporters, who want to disregard the racism and constantly make excuses for law enforcement. I have some that are law enforcement and make excuses for the murders that everyone can plainly see are blatant murder and a disregard for law and justice and giving someone the right to a trial and jury. I'm not dealing with them either anymore. So those of you who have everything to say about Blue Lives Matter and Veterans Lives Matter, but you cannot say Black Lives Matter, that shows me where you stand. And if you can talk about how, cops are getting such a bad rap, but you cannot talk about the consistent racial injustice and discrimination and absurd treatment Black people get consistently from law enforcement and from society in general, you have zero things to say about those issues, but you're on here, I'm standing with law enforcement. I'm not messing with you either. So, because the standard is, blue lives do matter, everybody's life matter, but their lives are not consistently in jeopardy. They're not consistently receiving racism. They're not consistently referred to as thugs or criminals. They're not consistently referred to as violent and angry and aggressive and treated like criminals before they've even done anything. Then their lives are not at stake. And there's no need to say that their lives matter, because it's consistently across the board understood. Black people consistently receive that bad treatment and consistently referred to as thugs and criminals and bad people and treated like bad people, even when they're unarmed and haven't committed a crime. And so there's a reason we say Black Lives Matter, because our lives should matter just as much as yours or anybody else's. And until that happens, we're not going to stop saying Black Lives Matter. And so those of you who refuse to educate yourselves on what that term means, and you don't want it, then stop speaking on it, because you're uneducated in the subject anyway. So until those things change, I'm going to keep talking about it. And these two situations are not the same. Our lived experiences haven't stopped having the racist undertones. We live every day with racism. And I want to talk about the American flag. Most people of color don't jump for joy at the sight of the American flag, and I'm going to explain to you why. So just look back at what happened on Wednesday at the Capitol. Those people had Trump flags, they had Confederate flags, and they had American flags. And they believe they're really patriots. They're not, by the way. But look back also at the Black Lives Matter protests. All the people that came out in anti-protest to those, these same people that stormed the Capitol had Trump flags, American flags, Confederate flags. And so their response to people protesting racial injustice is to throw an American flag or the Confederate flag in their face and yell USA. If that doesn't tell you how ingrained white privilege and white supremacy is into the fabric of our country as a whole, then you don't understand our history whatsoever, and you need to go learn about it. You need to educate yourself about it. If I say Black Lives Matter and I hate racial injustice and I hate racism, and your response to that in anti-protest is to throw a flag in my face, the American flag in my face, and say USA, because they believe that that's what USA is supposed to be about. That's what they believe America is supposed to stand for, that white privilege and white supremacy. Why is that the response? Why is that the response to people who are seeking social and racial justice? Think about that. That's their response, is to yell USA. So don't get mad when people don't jump for joy at the sight of the American flag, because for so many, white supremacists use that as a tool against us, to say if we are advocating and fighting against racial injustice and racism, that we're not patriots, that we don't love our country, and that we don't belong here, right? That's telling you that they believe that this is their country and that the USA and white people should be allowed to keep those privileges and should be allowed to be white supremacists and racist, and we shouldn't have anything to say about it. So I hope that you guys really let that sink in. And I could go on, and we can go back to when Kaepernick was protesting at the NFL games and he didn't stand for the national anthem. He knelt. By the way, I mean, he said it over and over again. It was put out there. A veteran told him to kneel. But let's talk about the national anthem and how that's racist. Some of you don't even know what the national anthem even stands for. Go back and learn it. Go back and read the third verse that has been cut out that they don't sing. If you haven't done that, then you really don't know what that national anthem is about. And you shouldn't be expecting people of color, especially black people, where it talks about catching slaves and killing them and murdering them. We shouldn't have to stand for that. We shouldn't have to salute that as nonsense. So those of you who expect us to continue just dealing with the okie doke and continue dealing with microaggressions and racism and the injustice that we see over and over again in the media and on film and on video, there's just no way that you can continue to defend that. And there's no way that, in my eyes, you can defend Trump and his actions. You can't defend the fact that it wasn't blatant for the last 4 years. And if you don't like what I have to say and you don't like me calling you out when you say some nonsense, then don't follow me, unfriend me. I'm fine with it. I'm not on here for fame. I don't do this for fame or popularity. I do this really to educate and to stand for my people and give a voice to the voiceless, because we're no longer going to be silent. I'm not going to be silent, and I'm going to keep posting. So I will continue to make these videos and put a little knowledge out there, but what I am tired of hearing is that people are tired of hearing about race. We're tired of living it, and I have lived it my entire life. I will tell you, the first time that I received racism or learned really what it was like in the 2nd grade. First time I was called a nigger. We lived in an apartment complex, and at the end were some racist rednecks, and they had Confederate flag, and the guy was teaching his kids, 2nd, 3rd graders, 1st graders, to call people the N-word, and they did. And so at 2nd grade, I had to start fighting. 2nd grade, I had to start fighting racism. 5th grade, I fought another little boy who called my mom a nigger and a bitch, and I fought him. I was a straight A student, honor student in the GATE program, and instead of teachers and the school staff stopping to ask what happened, because I was not in my character to fight, it was not in my character to get in trouble, instead of stopping to ask what happened, all they saw was that I fought a little boy and I choked him. And they were upset and wanting to suspend me. And until my mom came and demanded that they ask why and figure out why the fight even happened, and then realized that he had called my mom the N-word and called her the B-word. And they wanted me to sit in school after that, angry, hurt, feeling like I had to defend not only my race, but I had to defend my family, I had to defend my mom. And having had done nothing to this kid, and my mom had done nothing, I didn't even know that he knew who my mom was. Having experienced that, and then being attacked for defending myself and my mom, and then expected to sit in school and sit in class with him, hurt and angry, and still expected to learn. So let's talk about trauma and how racism and institutional discrimination, especially in schools, continues to disenfranchise and disempower, and it impairs the functioning of our kids. I was not able to learn or concentrate or function. I was upset, I was hurt, I was angry, I was ready to fight. And when we have those experiences daily, it is really hard to function and be calm. Don't tell anybody that they are over emotional and angry. People who have been on the receiving end consistently for years, for their entire life, and their families for centuries, and these stories passed down, have every right to be angry and upset and aggressive. It is emotional. Those are emotional scars that don't really heal. So for those of you who are looking to learn, really try to educate yourselves. Really listen. Really listen to the lived experiences of people, because we're not making them up. We're not just looking for reasons to pull the race card. We are given reasons day in and day out. Pay attention to that. Listen to that. Stop minimalizing people's experience because it's not yours.